Welcome. We're talking today with Susan Cady Allred, a fantasy and romance novelist. Is that correct, Susan?
Yes, among other things, yeah.
In fact, why don't we just dive right in? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the books you write.
Okay, my name is Susan Cady Allred. I have written, I just tallied this up, 39 books, and I write under 5 different pen names. I do Susan Cady Allred are my mystery thriller suspenses. Bryn Lee are my sweet romances. Allie Riggs are my speculative, urban fantasy, high fantasy, sci-fi. Jana Mason is all my fringe stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else. And then Susan Allred are my nonfiction, usually inspirational based or disability based.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So, if I understand right, a lot of your success has come from non-traditional publishing on serial fiction / subscription platforms. For those who may not be familiar with, can you kind of explain what a serial fiction platform is or subscription platform is and how that works?
Mm-hmm. So serial fiction is relatively newer in the United States, but it's been pretty popular in other countries. I didn't hear about it until maybe a year and a half ago when Kindle tried to launch their Vella system. Since then, there have been several others that are trying or have rolled out different systems. And what it is rather than paying for the book, you pay per episode. And it's designed for long stories. So if you have a novel, you might have 35 to 50 chapters. But with a serial platform, you might have closer to 100, 200, 300 episodes. You really don't even get started in your story until you're 30 to 50 episodes into it or chapters into it. So that's the difference, is it's much longer. It allows the reader to really sit in that world and to immerse themselves in that culture and in that lore. And in that story much longer. And it allows you to create a fan base because they spend more time reading your books rather than spending time waiting for the next book to come out. For the author, the perk is that you can sell by chapter instead of by book. Mm-hmm. And usually when you get someone who's a big reader, they'll like to binge. So that's always a big thing. But that's primarily the difference is they're much longer and you're selling by episode versus by book.
So that's interesting to me that it's typically a longer book, but is it correct to say that maybe the chapters might be shorter than normal, or is that correct? There's shorter chapters typically?
Usually, yeah, depending on the author and what their preference is. The way the payout model is for places like Kindle Vella or wherever, they have a minimum number of words, and that's what many of the authors shoot for. So in Vella, it's about 600 words, 600 to 1,000. Okay. And so that in a typical novel, you might have 8 or 10 pages or longer, but 600 words is equivalent to what, 2 pages of typewritten stuff? Yeah. So it is much shorter. And you usually, when you sit down and count how much you're paying per episode, it's like 10 cents per episode. If you have a 200 episode book, you're paying $20 for that book for an ebook, not even a paperback. And so those are things to consider. You're going to get more episodes, may or may not be as long or longer, but you're paying a premium for it because you get to read it first.
Okay, awesome. So what type of readers tend to use these platforms?
Like I said before, this is big in outside the U.S., so you get lots of international readers. Kindle Vella does not cater to international readers. In fact, I don't think you can read if you're international.
Okay.
But it also caters to younger readers. Like if you have Student Prime, it's free. Kindle is trying to get those younger readers and get them hooked on the Vella version. So I have a 15-year-old daughter that I introduced her to some of my favorite Vella authors, and she sat down, and one day she read, I think, an entire 70 or 80 episodes in one day, and she's like, more, I want more and more and more. And so I had to show her a couple other platforms so that she had more to binge on. I'm like,
So,
okay, well, you're reading
so
better
you
than
mentioned
social
you
media.
mentioned other platforms. So, Vela, Kindle Vela is one of them.
Yeah,
There's also Ream
Ream.
Stories. You can do it on Patreon. Are there other platforms you've used? Or are those the
Yeah,
main ones?
so you can do Wattpad was the
Okay.
original in a around here in America or whatever. That's where 50 Shades of Grey took off, was on Wattpad.
Okay.
Royal Road is another one. Radish is another one, and I think Radish is more romance based,
Okay.
and a couple others like that. But if you search around and you put in serial platforms or serial novels on Google, you'll find a bunch of them.
Okay. Awesome. So, what are the advantages? Why is it that these kind of platforms engage readers different than traditional publishing? I mean, what makes them want to read the serial platform versus, a traditionally published book?
For the serial platform, one of the big things is that you get smaller bites. So
Okay.
if someone wants to get their fix first thing in the morning while they're drinking their morning coffee or eating a bowl of cereal, they can do that in 15 minutes. They can get a pretty good fix. And they can do that during their lunch break, and they can do that during their whatever breaks they have, or when they come home from dinner before they get started on their evenings or whatever. So you can do it in smaller bites versus, I don't know about you, but when I sit down with a novel, I'm committing to 3 or 4 hours because I don't like to get up and I don't like to move. And if I find a series, my whole family's just like, we've lost her for a week because that's just the way I am. So serials allow you to do it in smaller bites.
What are the advantages to authors to go this route?
There are actually a couple of advantages for authors. First off, places like Kindle Vella have a pretty good bonus option right now. It fluctuates widely, which is definitely a negative, but is if you are aware of the wide fluctuations in payouts and you're prepared for them and you don't put all of your eggs in this one basket, then it's definitely a good way to substitute or supplement your income. For established authors or people wanting to establish this fan base, this is a great way to establish your fan base because you'll get people who like your style of writing and want to read the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so you're creating this fan base that will follow you everywhere. The third option is when you choose your platform and you create these, if you choose the right platform, let me reference that or rephrase that, then the platform will allow you to have all the email names and addresses of your followers. If I have someone who reads my Vela, I don't know who read it. If
Mhm.
I have someone on Ream who reads my Vela and likes it, I have their name and their email address and they become my people. If Vela decides to shut down in 3 weeks, all the people, my 10,000 likes on some of my stories, I lose them. All that work that I did creating followers and doing stuff like that, I've lost. But if you get the right platform, you keep those people forever and you can take them with you wherever you go and they can follow you wherever you go. So that's definitely a bonus. And then the third big thing is you get paid to write your rough draft essentially.
Oh,
In a novel, you have to have your finished product. It has to have gone through editors and several drafts, and it's a huge drawn out process. If you've never written a book, you have no idea how much work it takes to write a book. But the readers for serial novels understand that they're getting something rough because they get to be the first set of eyes on that work. So they're really good about pointing out a typo or giving opinions on what they like in your story arc or different characters, which is great for you because you get that feedback and you can modify it before it becomes a novel and it's permanent.
and isn't that one of the other enticements to readers too? Is it makes them feel like they're part of the creation of the final product?
Yes, there you go. That's your other big thing is that they get to read it first and they get to
Okay.
be a part of that process. I recently did that with a book that's coming out at the end of the month and I did it with a bunch of high schoolers and they helped me write the chapters and they were so invested in the story because they got to say, what happened, and they got to tell me what was working and wasn't working. And it was a lot of fun to have them engage and have that feedback.
That's awesome. So tell me, what has been the secret to your success with this? I think you mentioned you have, was it like 50 something books that you've written, and you've done quite well with this platform. What's been the secret to your success?
One, I'm a workaholic, so don't compare yourself to me. The second is I have learned to pivot. I think in the creative world, especially right now with the introduction of AI and all the different changes, you've got to be willing to pivot and keep an eye on what's going on around you and go, okay, this is working, this isn't working. And for me, I have to be willing to treat it like a business and let go of the things that I love sometimes to do the things
Mhm.
that make the money. And I save the heart things for later. There are some projects, like I have one about my son with Down syndrome, that I will publish, that has absolutely nothing to do with any of my other books, but I will do it because this is my book of my heart, right? But when it comes to writing for a job, I got to write for my job.
So what are we've kind of talked about this. So if you don't have anything else to add, that's fine. But what would you say are the differences between going straight to self-publishing an ebook versus, the serial fiction?
I would say that the difference for me is, one, when I do the serial fiction, it gives me accountability. I have followers who will email me and say, when's your next episode coming out? It's been a week. It's been a couple weeks. I am waiting. And that gives me accountability because I'm like, okay. I will put this down and I will write you your episode. And so that keeps me writing, which has been really good because I've been struggling with writer's block the last few months. The second thing is you're building your following before your book comes out. We've found that even though someone has read your chapters ahead of time, that doesn't keep them from buying the novel. They want to buy the novel. They want to see the finished work and they want to see the changes that you made from point A to point B. So even though you're writing your chapters and they see the rough draft, they will still most likely buy your novel. So you're building your following and you're building your readers and you're building the sales at the end of the day. Those are the big things for me, and you're building that community. So with the one of the big things uproars in the writing community is AI and how that's going to affect writers and their books that come out. And what I'm hearing from the future from the forward thinkers is that the way that you're going to stand out as a writer, as an author, is to build your community, to build those connections with the people who read so that they understand that this isn't a computer writing a book. This is a human being, and that this was created out of your brain, out of your heart, out of your mind, and it was created from nothing versus an algorithm of stolen property.
Okay.
And so that's an important thing that serials allow you to do, is to create that community and to create yourself as a brand and that connection with your readers.
Awesome. What advice would you give to authors who are considering one route or the other?
I would say that there's room for both.
Okay.
Don't limit yourself to just one thing. There are some books that I've written not on serial platforms and gone straight to publishing. There are some books that I found I'm going to need a little extra help with, and I put it on Vella or on Ream, and I just do it one chapter at a time, and that's okay too. I think when we try to follow someone else's idea of what success is, that's where we struggle. But when you give yourself a little grace and go, I can do this however I want to, and whatever makes me happiest, that's when you're going to find success.
For you personally, what went into those decisions of, okay, this one I'm going to go straight to self-publishing, this one I'm going to go serial fiction? What was kind of the thought process or the things that you took into account in making those decisions?
Some of the considerations were, is this a standalone? There are books that I'm only going to do 30 chapters, and that's not quite long enough to turn into a successful Vella or a successful serial, because you want them to be 100 or 200 chapters. So if I have a series that I'm getting ready to start, then I tend to put those on a serial platform because I can put each book in succession on the same thing. So it's season 1 would be book 1, season 2 would be book 2, season 3, etc. So I might have an entire series and it's 800 episodes. And then at the end of each book, you just have to, like on Bella, you just have to wait a month once that episode or season 1 is done, and then you can publish it.
Okay.
So the length of the series, whether or not it's a series versus standalone, is a big thing. Whether or not I'm excited about the book versus I'm trying to tie things up because someone's asked for it. If I'm more excited, I tend to put it on Bella because I can crank it out much faster because I'm a binge writer. So I'll sit down on, I got one that I, because I have literary ADD, I tend to get excited about certain stories and I'll get into it. So I've got one that I started a week ago and I'm 10,000 words into it, which means I already have 20 episodes written. And so I know that I can commit to the weekly release on a Kindle Vella for that one because I'm writing it so quickly.
Awesome. So for anyone who's listening, what's going to be the best or easiest way for them to find your books?
I have a link tree that I will give you, which basically is a list of all of my books and my Bellas in all of my different pen names because I've got so many different pen names.
Okay.
It can get overwhelming. So it'll just be a list of what they are based off of my different genres. So you can pick and choose what you like.
Okay, I'll put that in the notes.
All right. Thank you.
Any last words that you want to convey or say, or?
I would say if you like the idea of writing, but you haven't written anything yet, write. Everyone's got a story. Don't be afraid to get in there and get a little dirty. It doesn't have to be perfect. And actually, readers like, especially in the serials, readers like it a little rough around the edges because it makes them feel like they're a part of the process. I love writing. Once I got started, it was a daunting thing when I first started, but now that I'm in it, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine my life without it. So the writing community is amazing and supportive, and go for it.
Awesome. And that actually spurred another thought. I know with a lot of new writers, there's kind of an intimidation factor where they're afraid to show people their work. And it sounds like in this community, the serial fiction community, that community is very, they embrace that. They're supportive. And so new writers don't necessarily need to be afraid of sharing. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. I think in my personal experience, when you get into these writers' conferences where everyone has a master's or an MFA in writing, you get critical people because they know all the rules of writing, but readers don't know the rules of writing. They are much more forgiving about whether or not you break those rules. And those that binge, like in the serials, they're even more forgiving. And they're willing to, they'll take you as you are, and they will love your work, and they will eat it up, and they will cheer you for it. So don't be afraid.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. It's been great talking to you, and I wish you all the success,
Thank you. You
continued
too.
success, I should say. So thanks
Thank you.
again.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.